25, and 30, 35, and 40, 45, and 50, 55, and 65, and 75, and sold.
The Call of the Auction Man. Starring Rich Ranft. In this episode, Rich discusses some of the best treasures he's ever auctioned, what to look for in collectible and high-end lamps, and how to be profitable if you open your own store with your auction find. Later, Rich digs into the value of some unique treasures. And I'm Laura Baker, and we're here with the Auction Man. Auctions are an ancient and elementary form of commerce and have long been the best way to establish the value of unique and rare items. But most people usually only see things from the buyer's perspective. Today, our auction man reveals stories of some of the most unique items he has ever auctioned.
Wow, I mean, Laura, we've been doing this for 35 plus years now, and you try to just narrow it down to one or two or three things. I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder to some extent. I mean, is it money-wise, or is it the most exciting thing we've ever sold? And sometimes that's money-wise. Is it the most exciting thing for the family that we ever sold? Because that's sometimes the best treasure we've ever found, is we've done something good for a family and not for a trust company or for somebody that doesn't really care. One of the things that we found, and we found this in a Beloit house, and we were going through the whole house and selling everything in the house and selling the real estate and doing everything for them, is we found a Parker snake pen in there. And this has been a few years ago, so keep in mind that a lot of these things are going back in my memory a little bit, okay? At that time, that pen was probably valued at $2,000, something like that, which was a lot of money for a Parker pen back then. This is a lot of money for a Parker pen today, as far as I'm concerned, but it's still a lot of money. We had the auction. We had active bidding on that pen. A man that was 80 years old that night decided he wanted to buy the pen for his birthday present. And it was his 80th birthday. And he bought the pen, and he paid like $3,500 for it. Now, the family was shocked, okay? They just were shocked. I don't think the rest of the house probably brought $3,500. So it was nice to do that for them and find those kind of things for them. And that's one of the things we like doing. Just recently, and this is a lot more recent, so I can talk about it a little bit, is we had a man bring in a bag of jewelry. In that bag of jewelry was a 2-carat diamond ring. He didn't know he had a 2-carat diamond ring in there. He had no idea what he had in there, but he was just going to take it down to the gold scrap guy and sell it for gold scrap. And one of his friends said, "Now, just take it over to the auction house first and have them look at it. At least they'll tell you what you have." So we told him what he had. He said, "Sell it for us." That diamond ended up bringing $7,500. That, plus all the other things, that he got a check for close to $11,000 that for scrap he might have got a check for $2,000 for. So he was really happy. He was going to put new windows in his whole house. And now he's going to put doors in there, too. Another thing we found one time was there was an older couple. They were going to have a garage sale, and then he was going to have a garage sale, okay? And she was so adamantly against it, okay, because she didn't want people at her house. He priced everything at 75 cents. He had price tags on everything when we got there. And she said, "You just have to take all this stuff out of here because I don't want it sold at my house. Just go sell it." Well, one of the things he had was a Stanley #1 plane, which he had priced at 75 cents, which brought $750. They're probably not as high priced today as they were back then, but they're still a very hard to find Stanley plane. I mean, they're a rosewood handled plane. They don't have a number on them. They're a small plane. They're hard to find, but they are really hard to come by, and tool collectors love them. Tune in for part 2 next week. Going and tell you about the time we found the Jackson Pollock, and next week we'll tell you how much it brought.
Without any exaggeration, Tiffany Lamps have always been the real pieces of art and the outstanding addition to any living space. However, identifying a Tiffany lamp or any other high-end lamp may be a little bit more difficult. So we checked with the auction man to see what his thoughts were on collecting high-end lamps.
Good lamps always were signed. They didn't leave the factory as unsigned Tiffany lamps or unsigned Handel lamps. They didn't leave the factory that way. You could hear that. You hear that all the time where I've got a rare on-sign Tiffany lamp. Well, there is no such thing. So that would make it really rare, I guess, but there isn't. They didn't leave the factory. These were quality factories that put out quality products, and these were not cheap lamps. They weren't $5 Sears and Roebuck lamp or something like that. Even when back in the 20s, these lamps were $300, $400, $500, $600 for a lamp. That was a lot of money for a lamp. When you could buy a car for that same amount of money too, or you made 20 cents an hour. It was a lot of money. Only the very wealthy could afford them, first of all. And they're very well made. That's why there wasn't that many of them sold. I mean, it was supply and demand. On a Tiffany lamp, will be marked Tiffany and Company, or on a Handel lamp, it'll be marked Handel. It'll be marked. It'll be marked right on there. It won't be written on there with a pencil or a pen or something. It'll be stamped right into the bronze. And these are all bronze lamps, by the way. These aren't pot metal lamps. These are bronze lamps. Most people think they have a Tiffany lamp, and it's really a pot metal lamp that was sold by hundreds of other companies. Tiffany made leaded glass lamps. They use different style bases. Sometimes they use pottery bases. Sometimes they use bronze bases. But if they use pottery bases, they use really good pottery, or they used bronze bases. There's $200,000 Tiffany lamps, and there's $20,000 Tiffany. There's $5,000 Tiffany lamps, okay? There's probably $2,000 Tiffany lamps, actually. But they're small table lamps. But there's $200,000 lamps, too.
Many experts agree that there are several characteristics that identify a Tiffany-produced lamp. Here's what to look for. First, look at the base. Tiffany almost always made its lamps with a bronze base. There were no wood, plastic, brass, or zinc bases, which were common more in cheaper versions. Number 2, the glass. Tiffany Studios made its high-quality glass in New York, and Tiffany used a couple of techniques that make their lamps stand out. One is confetti glass, where specks of different colors are used on one of the many pieces of glass. Secondly, the color of the glass actually changes when the lamp is lit. Number 3, its origins. If you're in an antique shop or other sale, ask the seller to tell you who the previous owner was. If it came from an estate or was owned for the past 40 to 50 years by the same person, there's a better chance it's probably a real Tiffany lamp. People typically come upon authentic ones through their family or in some other way of inheriting it and discover it usually in a basement or an attic. It's more rare, but some have found originals at antique shops and estate sales. Number 4, the stamps. The base of Tiffany lamps almost always carried a Tiffany Studios stamp with a number. Many of the glass shades were also stamped. It's also important to remember that an item stamped Tiffany and Company, the high-end jeweler and fine goods shop, is not the same. The lamps made by the Tiffany Lamp Company were stamped Tiffany Studios, New York. Number 5, signs of age. An authentic lamp won't look brand new. There will be what is called patina, fading, or small color changes on the bronze parts of the lamp. But even this is not always foolproof. Really good reproductions mimic age on the base. Number 6, the light socket. Tiffany Studios usually made its lamps with a turn paddle knob socket for on and off purposes. A smaller number were made with a pull chain, but companies such as General Electric, Bryant, and Perkins made the sockets, and a socket that has been changed could affect the value. Some Tiffany lamps can also have a turn switch at the base. Number 7, the lead filling. Because of the high cost of bronze when the lamps were being made, Tiffany Studios made their bases hollow. In order to support the heavy glass shades, a heavy ring of lead was placed in the base. Lifting the base cap and looking in the base, you should see a grayish lead. And lastly, knock on the shade. Grab the top of the glass shade and knock on the glass lightly because of its age and the drying of the wax used to hold the glass together, the shade should rattle. A firmer glass shade that doesn't rattle could be a fake. So what tips does our auction man give for how to be profitable if you open your own store with your auction finds?
Well, you have to be careful you don't buy things you just like. Because just because you like them doesn't mean everyone else is going to like them. Let's just say you like 1950s furniture. Well, that's probably not too hard to do because lots of people like 1950s furniture. So that's probably not a bad niche to get into. And I would say the more unusual you can make your niche, the more successful you'll be. It's a little harder sometimes, but you can ask for more money for unusual things. And you don't have to buy as much of it. So if you have unusual mirrors or unusual furniture or designer items, you might do better than just selling $3 pieces of glassware. Now some people are really happy because they can buy a lot more. If they can buy 30 boxfuls for $20 and sell $1 a piece out of each one of those boxes, then they figure they've got all their money back. I think you're always going to be better off if you could specialize. You could do a vintage clothing shop, and you could do a vintage clothing and furniture shop, so you could mix that together a little bit. You could add jewelry to that. I think that would be a really successful business model to me. I think that's hot right now, and by being vintage, you can always move your vintage to the year it has to be. You could move, if you were a 1940s vintage shop, and now all of a sudden 1950s stuff comes in, you just move your model to 1950.
So change according to the
You have to change according to the market always. Even McDonald's changes according to the market. Small businesses should be no different than big businesses. They should watch the market. They have a lot easier way of watching the market than people used to have. They can go on Google, they can look everything up they want to, they can find out just about anything they want to. They can call us and get a lot of information from us. They can go to our podcast and get a lot of information from us. They didn't get this information years ago. This wasn't available to them. Last year this wasn't available to them.
Certainly we try to keep everybody informed of what's going on, what's the hottest news in our podcast, and
for sure. The more people that participate in it and send in items and give us ideas that they would like on the podcast, the better it will be. We'll just grow with you.
And send in pictures of how things have been repurposed. We'd like to see those.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we have already been getting some things in and been talking about repurposing.
We've reached the part of the podcast where listeners like yourself can submit photos and basic information about items that you want to know what it's worth. Submit your questions and photos to rich@beloitauction.com, and we may feature it in an upcoming podcast. Hand sewing is an art form that is over 20,000 years old. The first sewing needles were made of bones or animal horns, and the first thread was made of animal sinew. Iron needles were invented in the 14th century, and the first eyed needles appeared in the 15th century. Several inventors have been credited towards developing the first mechanical sewing machines. However, sewing machines did not go into mass production until about the 1850s, when Isaac Singer built the first commercially successful sewing machine. It was also then that Singer built the first machine where the needle moved up and down rather than side to side, and it was powered by a foot treadle. Previous machines were all hand-cranked. The Singer Sewing Machine Company has now been building sewing machines for over 160 years.
You're going to find these in closets, in front hall closets, in back room closets. You're going to find these in closets of Grandma's house. And these are called the Singer Featherweight Sewing Machine. And this is a Singer 221 Featherweight Sewing Machine. Comes in a little black case. It's got a black handle on it. It looks like a typewriter case almost, but inside it, it's a Singer Featherweight Sewing Machine. And it's the hottest collectible sewing machine out there. And one of the reasons it is because of all the quilting classes that are going on. All the quilters love these little sewing machines because they can carry them right to their class with them. And when they walk in and they've got a Singer Featherweight, they have become the professional quilter in the class. They all have one. It's like walking into a pool hall and everybody's carrying their pool cue. It's not much different. It's a very reliable sewing machine. It never breaks down hardly. The bobbin holder alone that's underneath the plate, the replacement bobbin holder costs $100. So you have to watch it. That bobbin holder's there. You have to be careful that bobbin holder doesn't get lifted or somebody steals it.
But how much would it sell for?
That sells for about $350 now. That used to sell for about $500, but it's come down a little bit now. But it's still at $350, just a pretty nice little find in the closet.
So what's your next what it's worth item, Rich?
The next item is a piece of Roseville pottery. And you're going to find Roseville pottery in a lot. It's a common pottery, so you're going to see it a lot. You have to be a little careful of Roseville because Roseville was reproduced and is being reproduced. And it's reproduced in China. And it's coming across. And the pattern that you see right there is one of the patterns that was reproduced. This isn't a reproduction because you can tell the reproductions. The reproductions are really light. The Roseville isn't very well stamped into the bottom of them. All the things about them, and it's not a very well done piece usually. They're getting better at it, just like they reproduce everything that has some value. But this vase by itself is worth somewhere around $100, $150. You can buy a reproduction one for $2. If you really don't care, you can buy the reproduction one. But if you're a Roseville pottery collector, and I really believe if you're going to be a pottery collector, you probably should stick to one type of pottery. You know, either stick to Roseville or stick to Weller or stick to Night Oak or stick to one of them. The next item is a piece of carnival glass, and carnival glass has went down a little bit in value, so it's not quite as valuable as it used to be. White carnival glass is more valuable than other kinds of carnival glass. It's all very pretty, most of it, okay? And you have to want to have a lot of pretty stuff around your house to like carnival glass. And what we see is most of the people that buy carnival glass are 50 plus years old. It was given away free. So there were some very good names of it that put it out, that made it. Miller made some really nice carnival glass, and that's probably a piece of Miller right there. It first was given away at carnivals, and then they started giving it away at theaters too. So it was a premium piece of glassware that was not a very expensive piece of glass, or they wouldn't have given it away free, first of all. Let's get that out there, okay? It's not like art glass. It's got the same look of art glass, but it's not like having a piece of Steuben or a piece of Tiffany or any of those type things that cost a lot of money. Oh, this piece here would sell for $50 to $60, and this piece used to sell for $150. People that didn't have a lot of money could collect very nice things. So they couldn't collect Tiffany. They couldn't collect Lotes. They couldn't collect any of those other names that I've said before that are high-named glass where they could collect carnival glass real easy. I'm not a big fan of putting antiques on shelves myself. I'm a big fan if you can't use it, don't have it. The chances of it going up in value are probably not all that high, so you might as well buy something to use. And I think you should buy every antique to use, even if it's a piece of furniture. If you're not going to buy it to use it, why buy it?
If you have an item and want to know what it's worth, please send your picture along with basic information to rich@beloitauction.com. Stay tuned as Rich gives a special deal for both online and on-site auction buyers through the end of the month. So what are Rich's top picks at auction this week?
We just picked some things this week, and one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is vintage girls' dresses, little girls' dresses. And these were all handmade, and this is what women used to do. And I'm sure some women still do, but I don't think it's anywhere near what they used to do. We were reading about this weekend is women don't golf like they used to do. Women used to golf all the time. They joined the country club. They were housewives. They would join the country club. They had nothing else to do, so they would go golfing for 6 hours and then come home and fix dinner or whatever. These are just nice little vintage dresses, and not everybody's going to want them, but there's a lot of vintage clothing shops out there that will love these, and we'll sell these as a package.
So what is Rich's next auction item?
Well, there's an Apple IIc. There's a second Apple made, okay? And if you're 35 to 45 years old, somewhere in that range, I would guess, you used one of these in high school probably, or in middle school or someplace, because this was a computer that everyone had. This was the second Apple made, like I said. It's now has gotten very collectible. The first Apple is really collectible, but this is pretty collectible, and it's got everything with it. I would think that this thing would bring somewhere around $150, $200 for this, but somebody will like it because it's vintage and it's collectible, and it's, as far as we know, it still works. This is a whole kitchen out of a condo over in Lake Geneva. There's actually a kitchen and a bathroom there. We're going to sell this whole kitchen as one unit and the bathroom as another unit. It's out of a condo in Lake Geneva they're redoing. It's about a 10-year-old kitchen, and it's in really nice condition. Cabinets, sink, countertop, exhaust fan. In the bathroom, there's a vanity and a stool.
If you'd like to shop at one of Rich's auctions and you are shopping through his online store, email Rich at BeloitAuction.com and use the code PAXTON, that's PAXTON, to receive $5 off your order. If you're shopping on site, you can use the word Paxton at the counter to get $5 off your purchase. Stay up to date with all of Rich's auctions. Email Rich at BeloitAuction.com to get added to his e-postcard list. If you'd like to see more items that Rich has for auction today, stop in at his website at BeloitAuction.com or check him out on Facebook. Or, if you'd like the auction man to shed light on a question you have about auctions or something you have in your collection, drop him a line at rich@BeloitAuction.com. The Call of the Auction Man is a Beloit Auction production. Beloit Auction is the proud winner of the 2014 WAA Best of Show Marketing Award.